Hello, English learners, and welcome to the Daily Routine podcast. I'm John, and today I'm honored to join you on your journey to mastering English. And this is my partner, Sarah.
Hi John, hello listeners. I'm Sarah and I'm excited to share with you some tips to help you feel more confident speaking English. John, what do you think we're going to talk about today?
Today we're going to dive into a problem that many English learners have: understanding English but not being able to speak it. Sarah, why do you think speaking is so difficult?
That's a great question, and I think it's a multifaceted one. Speaking English requires both confidence and the ability to quickly combine thoughts and pronunciation. So today, we're not only going to look at why, but also share some techniques and tips to help you improve your speaking.
That's right. The goal of today's podcast is to help you feel more confident, learn practical techniques, and most importantly, develop a positive mindset when learning English. Sarah, let's get started.
Exactly. Let's start this journey with the first shares about why speaking English is so difficult. Let's overcome it together.
Hey Sarah, have you ever wondered why so many people can understand English movies, podcasts or books, but when they speak it sounds like hitting a wall?
Oh, that's so true, John. And I think it's like learning to play an instrument like the piano. Imagine. You hear a beautiful piano piece, you can recognize the melody, but that doesn't make you know how to play it right away.
That's right. Speaking English requires you to work on your language muscles and focus on coordinating your thoughts, speed and pronunciation. Sarah, what do you think about the difficulty of translating from your mother tongue to English?
That's a big barrier. When you translate in your head, you're flipping through a dictionary in your mind. It slows you down and makes your speech sound awkward. Have you ever tried to speak and suddenly realized, oh, I'm still thinking in my mother tongue?
I remember it clearly. When I first came to America, every time I bought coffee I would think, what am I going to say? Then I would translate each word in my head, but the result was that when I said it, it was very hesitant. Practicing speaking naturally is so different.
So true. Your story reminds us that moving from understanding to speaking takes time, practice, and quite a few confidence boosts.
Sarah, what do you think about the fear of making mistakes? Many people feel shy when speaking English just because they are afraid of making mistakes.
Yes, John. I think this fear comes from a fear of being judged or embarrassed. When you worry too much about correct pronunciation or correct grammar, it makes it harder for you to speak naturally.
So how can we change that? How can we stop being afraid of making mistakes?
Start by changing the way you think about mistakes. Instead of seeing them as failures, see them as opportunities to learn. Every time you make a mistake, it's an opportunity to improve.
It's like learning to walk. A child falls many times before he learns to walk confidently.
Exactly. We never judge a child when he falls, so why judge yourself when you say something wrong? The important thing is that you keep trying. And every time you try, you get a little better.
I agree. But how do you stay positive when learning to speak?
A great way is to focus on what you have achieved, rather than what you haven't. For example, if you can introduce yourself in English, be proud of that. You don't have to be perfect, just improve a little bit every day.
That makes sense. Focus on progress instead of perfection. Can you share more ways to increase confidence?
Absolutely. One effective way is to practice in a safe environment. For example, you can talk to yourself in front of a mirror or record your voice. When you listen back, you will see where you need to improve, but you will also recognize what you are doing well.
Sounds interesting, and I think it's important to learn to laugh at your mistakes.
That's right. Treat mistakes as an integral part of the learning process. Instead of being embarrassed, learn to laugh at them and learn from them. As I often say, a mistake today is a lesson for tomorrow.
That's right, and I think when we change the way we think about mistakes, speaking English becomes much easier and more enjoyable.
Exactly. Remember, confidence doesn't come from never making mistakes, it comes from overcoming them. Just try and enjoy the journey.
Sarah, now let's talk about some effective practice techniques to improve English speaking skills. I heard that shadowing is a very useful method. Can you explain it more?
Of course, John. Shadowing is a technique where you listen to a conversation or speech in English from a native speaker, then try to repeat it immediately, like their shadow.
Sounds interesting, but how do I get started with this technique?
Start with short passages, about 1 to 2 sentences. Listen carefully to the pronunciation, intonation and stress of the native speaker. Then try to repeat as closely as possible. If you find it difficult, you can pause or rewind to practice more.
I think it's important not to have it perfect from the start. Just try to get it as close as possible.
That's right. And as you get used to it, try longer pieces, like a conversation or a segment from your favorite podcast. This will not only help improve your pronunciation, but will also help you get used to the rhythm and structure of English.
Very useful. What about chunking? Sounds like an interesting technique too.
Chunking is a way to break down complex sentences into more manageable phrases. Instead of trying to say one long sentence, you focus on one small phrase at a time. For example, the sentence, "I would like to order a cup of coffee, please," can be broken down into, "I would like to order a cup of coffee, please."
I see. When you practice this way, it will feel easier and less stressful to speak complete sentences.
Exactly. And when you string these phrases together, you'll find that your speech becomes more natural. Plus, chunking also makes it easier to remember sentence structure.
Great. What about learning everyday phrases? I think this is the fastest way to start communicating.
That's right, John. Everyday phrases like, "How are you?" "Thank you," or "Can I help you?" are very common and useful. You should learn and practice them in many different contexts to feel more natural when using them.
I think it also helps you build confidence, because you always have familiar answers ready.
Exactly. And don't forget, practice these phrases by saying them out loud, recording them, or even practicing with a friend. The important thing is that you actually use them regularly.
These techniques are really helpful, Sarah. I think anyone can apply them and see a noticeable improvement in their English speaking skills.
Absolutely. Start small, keep practicing, and you'll see progress every day.
Sarah, I know it's important to practice in a real-life environment. But if we don't live abroad, How can we find opportunities to practice English?
That's right, John. Luckily, there are plenty of ways to practice without having to go abroad. A great way is to join a hobby group or community activity that uses English. For example, if you like cooking, take a cooking class in English.
Great. What about people who can't attend live classes?
No problem. Technology offers so many opportunities these days. You can use language exchange apps like Tandem or HelloTalk to connect with other learners around the world. They will help you practice speaking English, and you can teach them your language.
Sounds interesting. What about online classes? Should I take them?
Absolutely. Online classes, like on Zoom or platforms like Italki, provide great practice. You can join English clubs, online meetups, or even hire a native tutor to help you improve your speaking skills.
That makes perfect sense. I also think connecting personal interests with learning English will make the learning process more enjoyable.
Totally agree. If you love movies, join English movie forums or discussion groups. If you are a sports fanatic, try joining international communities that love your sport. The important thing is to find a context that you really enjoy so that you are motivated to use English.
So there are many ways to practice without having to go far. The important thing is that we take the initiative to seek and create opportunities for ourselves.
Exactly. And remember, every time you practice, whether online or in real life, is one step closer to speaking English confidently.
Thanks, Sarah. I think this will help a lot of people find a practice that works for them.
I hope so. And I encourage all of you to try one of these today. You'll be amazed at what you can achieve.
John, have you ever heard of the Broca's area in the brain?
I have heard of it, but can you explain it more clearly for everyone?
Of course. Broca's area is an area in the anterior cingulate cortex of the brain, known as the language control center. It plays an important role in producing speech and coordinating complex movements like pronunciation. When we learn a new language, this area has to create new neural connections, like starting to build a bridge in the brain.
That's interesting. So how did the construction of this bridge go?
When you learn a language, your brain has to absorb and store new information, like vocabulary, grammar structures, and sounds. Repetition and practice strengthens these connections, just like when you exercise a muscle. At first, those connections will be weak, but the more you practice, the stronger the bridge in your brain becomes.
So what happens if you stop exercising?
If you stop exercising for a long time, these connections will weaken, like an abandoned bridge. However, the good news is that the brain is always able to regenerate, so you can absolutely start again and make these connections stronger.
So, what's the secret to speeding up this process?
Practice often. As you practice, your brain will continuously activate Broca's area and other related regions. It's like walking across a bridge every day. The more you walk, the more familiar the path becomes and the more secure the bridge becomes.
That said, practice not only improves but also preserves what you have learned.
That's right. Every day, even if it's just 15 to 20 minutes of practice, you're helping yourself maintain this bridge. Remember, consistency and repetition are the keys.
Sarah, congratulations on completing today's journey. We've covered a lot of important aspects. Let's recap.
We've looked at why speaking English is harder than understanding it, useful techniques to improve your speaking skills, and how positive thinking can help you improve every day. We've also discussed the importance of regular practice and building connections in the brain.
And most importantly, remember that learning to speak English is a journey. Every small step you take is one step closer to your goal.
That's right. Keep trying, be confident, and enjoy your English learning journey.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. Please share your questions or experiences and make an appointment for the next podcast episode.
See you in the next episode. Remember, you are not learning alone. We are here for you.